hey. Yeah, we're doing banana pudding this week. Oh yeah, it's super easy. Cool. Well, I've got them on the line. Hold on. I'll call you back. So, you may have overheard, we are doing banana pudding today. It's one of my favorite recipes. It is from one of my favorite books. You can tell it is well loved, this book. It is called Brave Tart, Iconic American Desserts. This really does represent a lot of the desserts I grew up with that I loved, a lot of the flavors that I love, and that's why it is the perfect dessert book. And it's something I highly recommend to everyone. This is worth every penny, and following her on all of social media, especially Instagram, is great as well. So without further ado, let's dive into banana pudding. Yes.
Here's what we're going for today. Banana pudding is a beautiful layered, almost parfait situation of pudding, butterscotch, bananas, cookies. It's just all so wonderful. So just a little heads up, I'm going to be adapting Stella's recipe around what I have and don't have in my kitchen. Her book goes over these options for replacements and even modifications as needed. In a saucepan, we are going to get 12 ounces of milk and 8 ounces of heavy cream. In a separate bowl, we're going to whisk together our dry ingredients. 7 ounces of sugar, 1 1/4 ounce cornstarch, and I don't have vanilla beans right now because they're super expensive, but I do have vanilla paste and I'm going to use that. A half a teaspoon of that goes right in the bowl. Give it a good whisk to combine everything thoroughly and make a mess. And next up is egg whites. And as you can tell with this recipe, I'm using all weighted measurements. Stella does a great job of making sure all of her recipes are by weight. And that's key here. So weigh out 4 ounces of egg whites, which coincidentally ends up being about 4 eggs. Save the yolks for pasta or some other application, but you can set them aside. In the background, I've got 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm pouring 1 teaspoon vanilla extract and 1/8 teaspoon of almond extract. We talked about it in last week's quick tips video, but gathering all your ingredients first is key to success and to easily execute each part of this dish without panicking. We're going to put our pot on the stove and bring it to a simmer, and while that happens, we're going to whisk together our egg whites and our dry ingredients. Keep an eye on your pot because it tends to boil over if unwatched. As you can see here, it's about to start boiling over, and I cut the heat off and whisk it up a little bit to kind of simmer it down. Once ready, we're going to pull it off the heat and get ready to ladle it into our dry ingredients. I have these neat rubber bottom bowls, but if you don't, you can just wrap a towel around the bottom like so. You're going to do about 3 ladles of the hot liquid into the dry ingredients while whisking, and then we're going to add it right back into the pot. Putting it back on the stove is going to thicken this whole mixture right up. You're going to add in your couple tablespoons of butter before you put it on the stove. Alright, time for the sad news. So, apparently my camera didn't record this part. And it's an important part. It's where the pudding gets thick. So here is some text on the next step. You're going to cook over medium heat while whisking constantly. It's going to start to look thick at about 3 minutes. You're going to continue whisking for 1 more minute. Set a timer for this. This cooks off the starchy taste. Do not overcook it. And then strain it all into a fine mesh sieve. This is what the end product of that should look like. Alright, so you're going to wrap the whole thing in saran wrap and press the saran wrap to the surface of the pudding. You don't want it to form a skin. You also want to poke some holes in it, I've got this cake tester and just poke some holes to let some of the air escape and let it cool off properly. We're gonna put this in the fridge overnight, but if you have a shorter time frame, you can do 4 hours. While that chills overnight, we're gonna make a batch of malted butterscotch. This stuff is so delicious and can keep up to 2 weeks in your refrigerator, so this really can be made at any time. As you can see, I have everything here in front of me once again. First thing we're going to do is combine 4 ounces of water, 9 ounces of sugar, and a 3/4 teaspoon of salt in your pot, and put it over medium heat while stirring. You're going to stir this for about 4 minutes or until you start to see the edges start to bubble up pretty significantly. Once it starts to bubble up, you're going to let it sit untouched for about 8 minutes. Now this part you're going to just keep an eagle eye on and look for any hints of golden color to pop up. Once you see that tinge of golden color, you're going to add your cream and butter. Reduce your heat to medium-low and let simmer for a little bit longer. The syrup will bubble a bunch, but it shouldn't overflow if you have the right size pot. Once you are stirring for a little bit longer, keep an eye out for the bubbles to subside. That's when you're going to turn the heat off. With your really dope spatula, you're going to stir in 3/4 ounce of barley malt syrup and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. That barley malt syrup is key to that butterscotch flavor. It's worth purchasing and adding to your pantry. It's also really good in bagels. So you're going to pour your butterscotch into a glass container, maybe a mason jar. I like to use a measuring cup so that I can pour it right into my containers. It's got that nice little lip. Time to finish off our pudding. If you want it, you can use this pudding as is. Just give it a stir before filling it up in whatever you're serving it in. But I prefer the mousse version of this pudding. So I'm going to whip up 6 ounces of heavy cream to stiff peaks. While that's going on, I'm going to stir my pudding until it is smooth. Once we have those stiff peaks we're looking for, we're going to fold our pudding into our whipped cream.
He folds it in. I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
David, I cannot show you everything.
Okay, well, can you show me one thing?
Yes, of course, David. So you're going to use this motion, kind of lift it up, fold it over itself, and through the center, making sure to hit all sides of the bowl, especially the little bottom part. Once our mousse is homogeneous all the way through, you're going to taste it, make sure it is just as delicious as it looks, and then you're going to wrap it up for 1 hour. You're going to let it chill in your refrigerator this whole time. While that's going on, you can assemble the rest of your ingredients, get your mise en place ready. The amount of bananas you use in this recipe is really up to you. You can go bananas if you wanted to. I'm going to use about 6 smaller bananas that I'm going to thinly slice. Get them pretty nice and thin. I'm using a piping bag here today, but you could just spoon these into your containers. The piping bag just makes it neater and presents a little bit better. A quart container is clutch for filling a piping bag. Now that we have our bananas, our Nilla wafers, the butterscotch we made, and our chilled pudding ready to go in this piping bag, it's time to assemble. The only hard and fast rule to layering this is that you want to have the butterscotch after your layer of pudding. It gives something a little bit wetter for your bananas and your cookies to sit in. Alright, sprinkle in your bananas, like I said, as many as you like at this point. For the Nilla wafer layer, I tend to crumble them into like big chunks, but you can do whole cookies. The chunks just kind of fit better amongst the bananas, in my opinion. And then another layer of pudding, and to top it all off, just a little bit more butterscotch. And of cookie, of course. And that was our banana pudding. This is definitely one of my favorite desserts and really accomplishable for a beginner. Big thanks to Stella Parks and her wonderful cookbook Brave Tart. It does a perfect job of breaking down each recipe and telling you the whys of each one, as well as other options. If you are gluten-free, you prefer other fruits, blah 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 blah. It really is great. Link to purchase it is in the description below. If you like what you saw here, drop me a like and subscribe. I put out videos every Monday and Friday. Have a magnificent day, and may your quest for food knowledge be bountiful.